This is gonna hurt.
Philip was tired. The hours were taking their toll on him. And despite his meticulous planning, he couldn't have foreseen his unexpected visitor. His arms were beginning to hurt, and it took a little more effort just to stay on his feet. He thought about resting a bit, but now that was impossible. The police would be here in less than an hour, and the two figures sitting across from him needed to be dealt with. He slumped into the couch opposite his parents and lit a cigarette. He watched with amusement as his mother frowned at the bad habit he had claimed he was done with. He took a long drag, laid his head back, and blew rings of smoke up to the ceiling. For a second, his eyes closed, but the muffled sound of his father quickly brought him back. He had been dreading this particular moment the most. Susan and Stephen had been easier. He had actually been looking forward to what he did, every day making his anticipation stronger, his need for blood stronger. Philip got up to his feet and walked to the bedroom window. He was on the second floor, and from up here, he could see down both ends of the street. Any flashing lights would be visible, but he didn't want to rush this. This was important. He looked back at his parents, their eyes studying him thoroughly, the way a master would look at his dog before putting him down. It amused him how much they still believed they were in control, despite being tied up and gagged. They weren't pleading him with their eyes the way the other two did, and they didn't seem to have any inherent reason to struggle. There was only repulsion, and it infuriated him. He walked slowly and stood in front of them, eyeing them both, taking one drag from his cigarette after the other, blowing the smoke in their faces. They never flinched.
I give the others a chance to talk back. I don't think I'll do that with you. The two of you, you've said enough over the years.
He pulled a chair from behind him and sat down, crushing his cigarette into the carpet. He remembered picking it out with Susan. It was bittersweet.
You know, I've constantly argued with myself about our situation. I mean, I can't deny what you've done for me over the years. Had a childhood that everyone envied. I doubt I'll ever stop being grateful for that. But that love wasn't exactly unconditional, was it?
Henry, what are you doing? Please let me.
His mother mumbled something through the gag, and he held up his hand to stop her.
Just shut up and listen. When I rebelled against the constant control, the constant choices you nudged me towards, you fought back. You fought back with every weapon in your arsenal. I don't really care what your intentions were, or whether or not you were only looking out for me. The truth of the matter was, the support you showed early in my life was gone. And I had to live with that for years. Even when I came back, you never failed to make sure I knew who was in control. You were like puppet masters, and I willingly tied myself to your strings. It was the biggest mistake of my life. I should have fought harder, longer, but I didn't. I cracked. And you made sure I knew that. You made sure I always understood that without you, I was nothing. I don't know what it is about you. I don't know why you couldn't just let go. Let me make my own decisions. If you had, maybe I wouldn't have made the mistakes I did. The mistakes that put us in this position. Maybe letting me lose to the world would have worked better for all of us. You know how developed countries suffer more from autoimmune diseases? It's true. I read it somewhere a few weeks back. It had something to do with being overprotectively safe from disease and blah, blah, blah. Your body just decides to attack itself. I think that's what's going on here. Only it's the mind that's eating itself. I love you both. I really do, despite the ropes and the gags. I don't blame you for every wrong decision I took, at least the ones I took on my own. All I wanted was to be in control of my own life. Did you want to live yours and mine at the same time?
His parents stared back at him, quiet, hesitant.
Did you?
He instantly held back the rage that had been building up and sat back in his chair. Their eyes measured him, but there was no reaction to his sudden outburst. He nodded slowly and stood up again, lighting a cigarette as he walked back to the bedroom window. He had already made up his mind. He knew exactly what he was going to do next, but still hesitated. After all, they were his parents, and that had to mean something. He smoked in silence as he stared out the window, looking at them every now and then. It was the red and blue lights coming from the distance that brought him back to the graveness of his situation. He put out his cigarette on the windowsill, turned back to his parents, and pulled out the 9mm he had bought a few weeks before.
I was just a project to you, wasn't I?
He asked them. His mother shook her head quickly, and his father tried to mumble something through the gag. He felt tears sting his eyes and realized he had been crying openly through the whole ordeal. He tried to fight them back, but couldn't. He hated crying in front of them.
This is gonna hurt.
He watched as their bodies slumped, his father quickly falling to the floor. Their eyes stared up at him, both obviously equally surprised by what had just happened. Philip knew in his heart that no matter how close the police were, his parents wouldn't survive the gunshot wounds. It was over. He watched them gasp for breath, and before they could pass out, he stuck the barrel of the gun into his mouth and pulled the trigger.